It's time for the Stain Game with your host, the one and only Justin Menezes. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Who knows what time it is that you're watching this episode. I am Justin Menezes, the host of the Stain Game podcast. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest, Joe Everest, the man himself from Ozark Fence. Joe, how are you doing?
Justin, I'm doing well. I appreciate the opportunity to come on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you being here. You are kind of a mentor, if you didn't know that, for me at least, a mentor for many in the staining and I'm sure in the fencing industry. You give so much information out freely, and you're always willing to help. And I personally truly appreciate everything that you do for us little guys and big guys.
Well, I mean, I'm always happy to help however I can, and this seems to be a good way of, these podcasts seem to be a pretty good way of scaling how much you're able to help and get a message across.
Well, that's kind of why I got into it, is to help starters, little guys, new guys, old guys who view of what happens in the staining industry and the fence industry, any kind of business, from a wife's perspective to owner operator to hopefully, as yourself, a man who has multiple crews running, multiple businesses going. And so that's the intent that we kind of came up with, creating this Stain Game podcast.
Absolutely. I think it's great. Congratulations, by the way.
So Fence Tech just happened. Oh, yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see how long we can make this go. It's been very interesting. We actually got Rob, the producer, to come and help us out because I am not a technology-friendly person. I'm more of a Hulk smash kind of person. Sure. And Rob has come along and he has helped tremendously with setting up the intros, setting up different apps and things that we needed to get that we didn't have so that we can make things run a little more smoother. And then, of course, Dan Blanc, the man himself, he provided the Rodecaster that we have to use to record and to do some of our sound effects and to look a little more professional. And so nice. Individuals helping other individuals, trying to help each other become more successful. And I just love it.
Absolutely.
So Fence Tech just got completed end of February, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
What did you think of Fence Tech this year?
Well, first and foremost, it was huge. Largest show floor they've ever had. Most vendors they've had on the floor, and you could feel it. It was, you walk into this room, and I remember my first Fence Tech. It was actually down in San Antonio. As a guy had never been, I walked in, and it was the largest building I'd ever been in, right, as far as like a convention center. And this room was huge, and tons of vendors. And I had that thought walking into Salt Lake City where again, it hit me just how big it is. It's like there are so many people here that are just willing to learn, wanting to make new contacts, wanting to network, that sort of thing. It was a heck of a year. We were blessed with great weather. I mean, it was on some days it was warmer there than it was here in Missouri. So I don't know how that works, but and that definitely helped for sure. Massive attendance, over 5,000 in attendance. So there's a lot of contractors there as well, in addition to a ton of vendors. Lots of education courses, great pre-party, great keynote speaker. I mean, it was a very good year.
Well worth going.
100%. Absolutely.
I keep saying to myself, I'm going to go to Fence Tech. And then something always comes up. Military training, this year, Al Martin's doing Staining University Canada, and I'm going to go to that and going back home, go see my Canadian brothers and sisters there in Burlington, Ontario. So it's kind of taken up my travel schedule. It's so I'm going to go to that. But one of these days, um, Craig Eubanks was saying, "Hey, you got to come to Indiana. It's closer. It's better." And I'm like, "Well, we'll see. I'd love to
Yeah.
go. It'd be just interesting to go."
Indianapolis is going to be great. I want to say it's earlier in February. So that was one of the things some of the guys I talked to. So it was late enough in February that the weather was starting to turn nice in some parts of the country, and so they kind of had to make a last minute choice on whether they're going to start their season or go to the show. So I don't know these specific dates. I probably should, but I believe it's a little bit earlier in February, so that should help. And Indianapolis itself is one of those towns that I think, I think it's going to be a great year as well.
Yeah, it's one of those towns that, my perspective, it's kind of like a hidden gem that most people don't realize how big Indianapolis is and how much there is to do in that place. Everybody thinks of Vegas or even like Salt Lake. Salt Lake is a beautiful city, lots to do. Everything's kind of centrally located, and Indianapolis is kind of the same way. You can get off the airport, take an Uber to your hotel. From the hotel, go to the convention centers or to the stadiums, wherever you're going. Hop back in the Uber, and you're back where you need to go.
Well, and depending on which hotel you stay at, there's several that are connected to both the convention center and the stadium. So you could literally take an Uber to the hotel and then never step foot outside again if you didn't want to, depending on how the weather is, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So a great opportunity. You had a good time. Lots of networking and great attendance. Came away with some good nuggets or positive vibes from Wednesday. Awesome.
Yeah, I had a great time in the educational classes. Made several contacts that I think will benefit the business itself and me personally. So I mean, that's kind of how I measure success. Was it good for the business? Was it good for me professionally? Did I learn something? Did I bring something home? And I think I checked each one of those boxes.
Yeah. So if you don't mind touching on that, because Staining University is kind of the big thing for the staining community. Wood Defender does their own little get-togethers. But as an expert stain and seal guy, Staining University, we just did the virtual one, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Lots to take away from it. And a lot of times I'll get comments from folks in the industry. Why should I go to the university or attend a virtual session? For stainers, for fence builders, what is the benefit of going to an event like Fence Tech or to these conventions? What do you see being one of the benefits if you're a guy or a gal who's been doing this in the business for a few years?
Yeah, being in the room and being able to network is probably the primary, right? And understand it's not only at the event. I would argue maybe the same or greater value can be found before and after the scheduled activities of the day. So speaking of Staining University, you and I have had quite a few good conversations after the actual classwork was done. Typically, it was you behind the grill, just feeding the masses, and then just sitting around and talking business, right? And just catching up on life and getting to know each other a little bit better. I think that's where a ton of the value is, and you miss that if in the virtual field, right? Now, virtual is better than not going to an event. Right. So if their only option was virtual, then that's a tremendous amount of value still yet. But if you can get in the room with people, I feel like the value is that much more for the networking. And it lets you just be in the moment also. Right. It lets you be present and just able to dedicate your attention to that. It seems like when I'm attending virtual events, a lot of times I'm in my office and, there can be things coming and going and I'm still looking at emails and I'm not 100%. I'm 85% there maybe or something. But so attending events in person, I think you just get to be present for it as well.
Yeah. The last Staining university that we went to, I guess not this year, but the previous one, we stayed at an Airbnb that had 12 or 15 different individuals in there.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult to sleep. Not because I snore.
Right.
I'm like a bear when I snore. But we would go to the event, and so kind of give you a glimpse of what we did. I love to cook. I love to make eggs, bacon, sausage, whatever we're having. And so that morning, I got up at like 5, and then people cooking, making eggs and bacon and some sausage and all kinds of stuff. So people are waking up, and we're chatting. You know, what are you expecting? You know, what do you do with this? What do you do with that? The next thing you know, it's like we're running behind. We got to go. We're going to miss the event. You know, and then we're showing up, and Ashley's giving kind of that dirty eye, like, where have you guys been? Things started like 30 minutes ago. Well, we all started chit chatting and eating and talking, and we want to leave. You're at that. You come, Chris and myself. I think we barbecued over 30 pounds of steaks just at that house, and we didn't go to bed until like 4, and it was playing cornhole, eating steaks. People were drinking beers. People were drinking bourbon, some cigars. Not far more inferior to what was at the event.
Yeah.
But I think folks just felt more relaxed and more in their comfort zone of being able to share, ask questions. So yeah, I agree. I miss keep with the tradition, but like you mentioned, it's like, oh, my phone just dinged, you know, and I'm checking an email, and I'm responding to this, or I'm checking on, you know, what's happening. You're not fully engaged, like you're there.
Yeah.
So, social media. Let's transition into that aspect.
Sure.
Of it. Every time I've seen you, met you in Fenton, whether it's at the Standing University or Ozarks event you used to hold, you've always been giving out in Facebook Live about getting on. You know, not being afraid to jump on your video, making a video on social media. What led you into the social media realm for Ozark Fence?
Well, I tell you, so the reason was pretty straightforward. Is when I bought the business from my dad in 2016, we didn't have money for additional advertising. I mean, we had a Yellow Page ad, and that was really the extent of our marketing budget. And I didn't have a lot to work with, but I knew that social media is free, right? So free Facebook account. I'd been running the Facebook account for Ozark Fence for a period of time previous, so I kind of knew my way around a little bit. And I knew I had a camera where I could shoot some content on. I could upload it onto YouTube and then share it out to Facebook. And that was the plan, right? And then I came across a book called They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. And the premise is everyone should absolutely, if you're interested in doing your own marketing, you should start with this book. The premise, the general idea is that you should be answering your customers' most frequently asked questions on a video and posting it somewhere, right? Because the idea is if someone has this question, there's likely 2 or 3 other people that had a similar question, but they just either didn't have the time or didn't feel comfortable reaching out to ask the question. So by being the one to answer the question, you become kind of the local resource of information. And it's not behind a paywall. It's not behind schedule a time for me to come out and I'll talk to you about it. No, it's, hey, here's the answer. And if you'd like to ask me more questions, here's how to get a hold of me directly. And that was the game. That was what we did. And that's what we continue to do. It's the cheapest advertising going because organically it's free. You know, you can do, and this was prior to Facebook Live and YouTube Live and all the rest of it. So now, actually, I mean, I would argue you guys have contractors starting out and contractors that haven't begun have more resources at their fingertips than I had at the time. I mean, at the time, you had to record it, then you had to edit it, then you had to upload it. Live video is an incredible tool that I don't think nearly enough people are utilizing.
Yeah, I was one of them, and as you mentioned, it's free. We all have these massive little kits. It's very easy to jump onto your media, go on Facebook Live, Rumble Live, everybody, and you can always jump on there. I remember and so now I mimic your way of introducing it. Hey, this is Justin. I'm here with Making All Things New. We're at XYZ address or a vicinity of that area, and we're going to wash. And we'll be back when we're done and show you the finished product. And it's a little nerve wracking at first. I'm not
Sure.
I'm not a pretty face. I'm not a kind of a timid person. It's ugly dude doing on social media saying he's going to wash or stain a fence or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Totally common. Totally
But
common.
it's free, right? What better way to get your stuff out there with a free source?
Absolutely. And it costs a little bit of time.
Again,
but,
I'm not a technology kind of person. We have an ad agency. Yeah, we just signed up with an ad agency or a local advertisement agency that's helping us with some commercials, some social media marketing. And one of the things that I've found is pretty amazing is the algorithm, the keywords. What have you found that will help someone who's maybe not in that themselves? What would you recommend as far as keywords, figuring out algorithms?
Yeah, it's thinking about what terms you would use to search for your service, right? So, everyone does the easy one, which is like for fencers, it's fence near me or stain near me or whatever. You can absolutely dive deeper than that, right? So I always reference a guy named John Bowdy with Stony Creek Fence because when he's doing videos, he does it really well in terms of he says, "Hey guys, it's John Stony Creek Fence. I'm out in insert neighborhood name, insert city name. We're installing a insert type of fence that solves insert problem." Right, so we're in the Schuler Ridge neighborhood here in Republic. We just installed a 6-foot tall privacy fence for some customers because they're tired of their dogs getting out and running away. It turned out great. Let's review the project and then he'll walk around it. Now he doesn't make a point of saying each one of these keywords intentionally, right? He says it conversationally to where if you or I are listening to it, if you're not really listening for the keywords, it sounds like he's just letting you know where he's at and what he's up to. But the algorithms listen to this video in near real time. So they're picking up these key phrases, right? And they're plugging them into known attributions, a neighborhood name, a city name, a fence, a type of fence, whatever it is. You can absolutely think intentionally about what your customers are searching for and then create content to that, right? For a fence company, the top 3 reasons that fence companies stay in business are kids, pets, and bad neighbors. So you're solving a problem, right? And so you call out the problem that you're solving. Or in staining, you're also solving problems, right? So, hey guys, we're out in this neighborhood in this town. These people have a beautiful deck that just, for whatever reason, it got a little bit neglected and it's turned gray, and they're really wanting to bring the life back to it while also protecting the longevity. And use all of these terms that people are interested in, and they likely have that problem as well. But while sprinkling in SEO type keywords, right? Cities, not states necessarily, but cities, neighborhoods, that sort of the county, if it's relevant to you. Like in our area, no one uses counties, but I know in a lot of regions, some people will just call out a county as a regional area. So, tailor it to your specific, area, but think intentionally when you're making this content about what you're saying, because the algorithm, that whatever platform you're going live or uploading to, is absolutely listening to it, and they know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. So for us, for me, I'm still a work in progress. I'm like a big ball of mud that is constantly churning on that pottery wheel. And we just did a wedding venue and what we were doing. And after we were done, Edwin, who was there with me, who works for me, he's like, hey, you didn't tell him more specifics of what we're doing. Don't just say, anyways, it's something that it takes time. The agency we're working with, it's funny. The guy's name is Christian, and it's okay to write down what you think you should be saying. Look up what some key words or key terms are being used, and then try to figure out a natural way of saying what you're doing, but involves, say, with like a poster board that no one can see, but he's there, and you're just kind of, okay, I hit, is your fence been neglected? Is it turned gray? All the little different things like but practice makes perfect, right? If you don't do it, you're never going to get there. So why not just try and make mistakes and get better, and eventually it just comes naturally and starts rolling off the tongue.
Yeah. The first dozen videos seem to be the hardest, right? Because you're just getting comfortable with it. You're just figuring out what to say and how to say it. And the first dozen or so are always the hardest. And to your point, I mean, I will still, like, if we're recording content here, I will still have bullet points off to the side of the camera where I'm following kind of the talking points I'd like to hit. You never really get away from that. I think it's a good idea to keep yourself on track. But one thing you shouldn't do is type out the entire speech, right? Or the entire advertisement, whatever you're wanting to say, because then I really feel like, I mean, I'm sure you've watched videos as well, where I've watched videos where you can tell they're reading from a script, right? And they're really just not good at it. To where if they're reading bullet points or just having a conversation, they're making sure they hit the top 5 things, it's going to come off a lot better, a lot more conversational, and people are going to resonate with it a bit more than just someone that we're reading a script.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it just it looks more natural. It looks more real, right? We've all seen the infomercials where they try to look like Mr. Jones and Mrs. Jones, but you just sit there and go, come on, who really goes and picks up their paper and and has a little dog that just never runs off to go across the street to chase the squirrel, stays there by his leg, and you always pet him, and the wife comes with her coffee to give you coffee. Like, I can't even remember the last time my wife came and brought me a drink, like, here, honey, you look like you've had a hard day at work. Have a monster, Viking berry to help you soothe and relax from your long day of work, But, if she came in through the door with a cast iron frying pan, oh yeah, that looks just like my wife.
It would resonate a little bit more with it.
But yeah, try to make things natural, real. So at Ozark Fence, you guys are staining, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So we pre-stain in-house, and then we also refer out to. We've got a great staining contractor here locally that we refer out to for on-site staining. In the past, we had done both. The pandemic reduced everyone's workforce, I think, and none of us have come back from it. So we're still offering pre-stain and then referring out for on-site staining services.
Is going a little cuckoo. Either the kids are Xboxing it like crazy, or might have to cut a cable if this keeps going like this. I don't do well when things don't go right. I usually tend to like destroy something. So
Well,
you guys
the good thing is
pre-stain.
it's recording
Are
locally.
you still
So
doing? Yeah. So do you guys, when you say you're pre-staining, are you doing the dunk staining batch, or are you using the stain machine, or what are you doing for pre-staining?
we're actually doing both. So it depends on the size of the order. So we'll do full immersion. We'll dunk the pickets and rails for standard, which our standard color is pecan. It does really well. Our clients really love it a lot. And then we're using the staining machine for any custom colors after that, and to where we can still offer a cedar tone or a walnut or a barnwood, something like that, to where we can offer other colors as well. Pecan's what we do the most of, so we'll do large batch dipping of that, and then use the same machine for custom orders.
Awesome. So what are your impressions with the stain machine?
I love it. I absolutely love it. So it's easy to get set up. It honestly can be a one person operation. We usually have two people running it just for efficiencies, but one person can set it up, fill it with stain, run the boards, two befores, whatever they're running, clean it up. Clean up is soap and water, so incredibly straightforward. It's a nice option to have because we're not. Our stain tank holds a tremendous amount of stain, and it takes quite a while to clean up. So we don't necessarily want to do that for every color we offer. Whereas the stain machine, you can, if we had a 30 or 40 foot job that wanted pre-stain materials, but they wanted Cape Cod or they wanted eucalyptus or they wanted something specific, sure, no problem. We'll run them through the stain machine and they would get the same level of pre-stain as if we were doing them in the full immersion system.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, that you would have to fill into your dunk tank to do. I don't know. Here in Omaha, I think average fence is about 185 to fill that thing, dunk all those posts, the 2x4s, the pickets, and then like you mentioned, take out the rest, put it back into another bucket. Whereas with the stain machine, the bucket, it's a very efficient setup and very user friendly. We ran some through a stain machine, and I just couldn't believe how about you could hire a couple high school kids, and they can run it through there and not taken by that. I mean, it doesn't really take that much training to get experienced on it, to run boards through it. Obviously, if you're not caring what you're doing, you can run problems, but it is pretty user friendly with a very professional finish look to it.
Yeah, I think we all know people that can make any job significantly harder than it needs to be. But someone with just basic hands-on proficiency can use that machine, and you can use it anywhere. You know, it's a small. We've got it in a shop that we dry boards in, but there's guys out there that will fold that thing up, put it in the back of the car or an SUV, take it out to a job site, and stain materials on site as well. So you can really put this thing anywhere you want it. You don't necessarily have to have a shop now in order to pre-stain, which for a lot of contractors is absolutely a game changer.
Yeah. 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 We've been trying to sell the idea here in the Omaha market. And one of the biggest, I guess, concerns that we get from fencers is time. You know, like there's a local fence company, very good fence builder, does amazing work. And his concern is we buy the lumber, we get it shipped out there, and they're doing no dig posts. So it's a very quick timeline from sell the project, start the project, end the project. He says it's usually done within 48 hours of a turnover. And he's like, now if I've got to wait for you to come and pre-stain everything, that's where he's got a hiccup with things, because they've gotten very efficient to deliver the lumber, put it up, finish, and be done with it. And they're kind of like, just let the customer stain it, deal with it. I don't want to deal with what if the boards don't dry correctly. Now my guys have stain on their hands, and it's like, oh, come on, it's not that difficult. But
well,
what are you seeing as far as being on both sides?
Yeah, fence contractors of that size typically are able to buy and hold materials before the job, right? So it sounds like what would be more interesting to them would be to bring a bundle of pickets to you, have you pre-stain them, then they store them on their lot so that they can send it right. It sounds like they're running just-in-time inventory or somewhere close to it. So they would need to stage the material on their lot to have available for this job. But, typically, and it depends on time of year, I suppose, but typically contractors are going to have 3 to 6 weeks of backlog anyway. So they might need to store the materials on a lot for a little bit, but not necessarily that long. One of the concerns about doing it that quickly would be, my concern might be just that the boards are ready for the stain, right? That the moisture content of the boards is below that 13 to 15% threshold where, a lot of us like to see the moisture content at.
Yeah, and that's, again, I think Caleb and I talk about this often, because I'm like, oh, man, the idea is there. It's just that leap of faith for some of these guys, and they're just like another fence contractor. I can't remember what the brand was, but they bought pre-stained lumber from a manufacturer, and it would, like, he even showed me videos or pictures where they would undo a bundle, and it would be chestnut from whatever mass supplier it was. And you'd have chestnut boards, and then when you got to the middle of the bundle of pickets, there's nothing there. It looked like regular unstained pickets. And so they're like, yeah, we've had stained lumber, and it looks like garbage. And, we rather you just go and stain the fence and know it's going to look good than have the uncertainty. And I'm like, I don't know. One day it'll
That's the difference between like a mass-produced pre-stained product and a stained by hand pre-stained product, right? So in that scenario, whoever they're buying from or whoever's making these boards is taking the boards and dunking the whole bundle, right? And which in essence is how pressure treated is done, except for what it sounds like the stain producer or whoever's providing these pre-stain boards is missing the pressure component to that. It really forces the stain into all the nooks and crannies, into the core of that bundle. And that's, they've had a bad experience. And so it's probably going to be hard to get over that. But I think that's, like I said, I think the difference is they've done business with somebody that did it on a mass production level arguably not well anyway. So it might just be a little bit of maybe education to where, just because that's been your experience elsewhere, let me talk to you about our process and why our process leads to a much better experience for you and your customers.
Yeah, I agree. The same fence company would never refer a stainer because of previous bad experiences in the
Hmm.
past, and we actually stained a fence for them at cost. Just hey, I'm going to charge. Want you to cover the cost of the material. I'll throw in the labor, and I'll show you just how we do things, what the material is like, how the outcome's going to look like, our process, and the only thing you're going to have invested is the cost of stain, and you'll pay for same price I pay for it. And after we did that for them, we've gained their trust to where they refer us as a company to come and do their staining when customers want it because they've seen our process. They know that we stand behind what we say we're going to do. And it's like, come on, John. When you were afraid of overspray and all those things, I walked you through it. I showed you how we avoid it and how we take precautions. The same hurdles you were not willing to jump and get past with staining is the same thing you're doing now with this pre-staining. Just give me a chance and I'll show you. And then
Hmm.
from there we can just keep growing the experience. Once we get that hurdle of yours. But sometimes an old dog is hard to teach them a new trick, and I think John is in that boat.
Yeah, I think you're
John's not
probably
his real
right.
name. We'll just call him John.
Sure, sure, sure. I think you're probably right. I think both those stories are good for contractors to hear because it's not always you knock on a door and you get a job, right? Or you knock on a contractor's door and you all of a sudden get all of their work. There's a lot of times there's an uphill battle because you're battling previous poor experiences they've had. And although it's not fair, but now you're kind of under that shadow of suspicion of, is he going to be the same way or are we going to have the same results? And you really almost have to go above and beyond and go an additional mile just to prove, just how good the experiences will be and then how far different you are from whatever that bad experience they've had in the past.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think Dan Wheeler always talks about going to the gas station to get gas during COVID, and somebody sees a fence builder or something on a shirt, a truck, or whatever, and they were just quick to buy. Hey, come build a fence for me, or come stain.
Mm-hmm.
Those days are gone, and now it's more of what do you offer. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you present what you offer, now it's what you offer, it's what Joe offers, it's what Dan offers. Now let me compare the three, and then I'm going to make an educated decision instead of, oh, you have availability tomorrow? You're hired. Come and do it.
Yeah, we're getting back to 2017, 18, 19, where customers have choices, right? In the pandemic era, 20 through 23, 24, fence builders and fence stainers, wood care product or wood care companies in general, were so booked up that if you had a phone number and it worked, you had 4 to 6 weeks of work. It's not that way anymore, and customers know this, and they're becoming much more picky about who they choose to do business with.
Yeah. Well, and everybody needs, like every year, we just had our beginning of the year meeting, and it's becoming kind of that broken record. Hey, last year was great. We had a great year, but this year we are back to square one. And regardless of what has happened in the past, it has absolutely nothing to do with what's going to happen tomorrow. Because if you're not out there, like the baseball story that you like to tell, uh, I don't bring it up for word verbatim, but it's
Yeah.
if we're not out there playing, hitting the gym, working, someone's going to come up and take your spot, and then getting that spot back takes way more work. than if you just continuously been doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Bingo. That's exactly it. That's exactly right. If you're not the one out there at the forefront, then you're just giving someone else the opportunity to step forward, and then you really got to fight tooth and nail to try to get back to the spot you already held.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's see. What else do we want to talk about? Your fence tech is done. You pre-stain. You
Yep.
contract out if a customer calls and says they want some staining done. Where do you see 2025 going?
I think, like I said, I think 2025 is more in line with 17, 18, 19, in that we're going to have to get really good at marketing and really good at distinguishing the difference between us and our competition. Lots of education. For fence builders, that means not only what sets you apart from your competition, but what sets your materials apart. We're going to have to get back to education. The pandemic, like I said, we were so busy. I think everyone took that as an opportunity not to do those things or not do them as much. We're going to have to get back to that. We're also seeing, at least in our region, we're seeing a reversion back to second quarter and third quarter are great. Fourth quarter, first quarter are slow. And then it's just a cyclical effect that you just have to plan for. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of contractors in all contracting spaces that started up. They came to life during the pandemic era, and they haven't lived through that. And the winters are tough for those folks. But you got to put a marketing hat on. You can't get by with just being open anymore. You have to distinguish yourself from everyone else in your market.
Yeah. Well, and I know you've talked about this a lot, and I've heard. I've gone from radio listener to podcast listening when we're on the job site, and it seems like every industry is really pushing the consistency in your marketing. Mm-hmm. That whether it's wintertime and you're not doing anything does not mean you turn off your marketing dollars. You may not spend as much because you don't have as much to spend, but it is important to keep your SEO, to keep your algorithm touches, the keywords, your name consistent. If it's at a smaller rate, but just keep your marketing going. Don't stop it, and then try to jump back in because you're now step one trying to get to step 3, and it's going to take time to get back to that consistent movement that you had before you stopped.
Yep. It always takes longer to get back to where you were every time.
Yeah. So if anybody wanted to, not that everybody doesn't know who Joe Everest is, because one, he's a great looking guy. He's got the orange down to a T, orange watch. He's got the orange band. Always looks good in orange, right? If you're not in orange, then you're wrong, is what I start to think when I see Joe. But I know you've got a YouTube channel where you've got a great podcast and a great show going on. You're on TikTok quite a bit now. So if somebody wants to reach out, learn from the master himself, where can they find you?
Yeah, if you search Joe Everest on your platform of choice, there's a good chance we're there. Facebook, YouTube, TikTok are the top 3 we're probably on more than anything. But there's a good chance we like being where attention is. So we're typically where you are, no matter where you watch content, how you consume content. YouTube is our primary, though, so it's where the majority of our content sits. But YouTube, Facebook, TikTok are kind of the top 3 right now.
Awesome. Yeah, I get, I don't know what it is, but with TikTok, it is very consistent. It's like when you jump on there, my phone lights up and it's like, Joe's live. And I'm like, I don't know what TikTok is doing. But like on YouTube, I get the notifications and everything. And I don't know how many times it's 10:30 and I'm like, oh, it's weird, into notification. And I go and your show's already on. Mm-hmm. But with TikTok, again, I don't know what they're doing. They seem to be on the ball when it comes to letting folks know, whoever you're following, they're on there. Go watch them.
Yeah, those notifications go out quickly. So TikTok's a platform we have our content with, but also I'm kind of playing with personally. So the lives there are just kind of on a personal channel I put together because I'm playing with it to see if it's the next Facebook, if it's the next YouTube, just to see, because like you said, the notifications are good, and it's good at finding people that like to watch that particular type of content. So I mean, something to watch. It's the downside of TikTok for local service businesses is it's not local. It's not good at finding local audiences. When I'm on there live, I'll have people from Florida, Washington State, New York, Canada, and they're really from everywhere. So for Ozark Fence, it doesn't make sense yet. But to your point, they're really good at a lot of things. So I've got to think they're going to start getting really good at, if you're interested in talking to a local market, get really good at getting your message to that local market.
Yeah, and if learned anything from the Chinese is they are quick to figure things out. And so I'm sure it won't be long. If you look at AI, we're spending billions and billions of dollars to take a couple of steps, and then you find out that a Chinese company comes in running with a 10% expenditure of what we're spending here, and they've got a chat GPT 3 steps ahead of where we're at already. So it'll just be a matter of time before TikTok is where YouTube and Facebook is, if not.
Yep, exactly. And I think I think everyone should kind of learn to flex that muscle a little bit, the muscle of like, let's try something new. Like, let's play with it for a while to figure out what it is and how it works to see, because if it becomes the next thing, if it becomes the next Facebook or TikTok, then those of us that are kind of messing around with it now are a little bit further ahead than those that are just starting to try to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, we're coming up to our closing time. Once again, thank you so much. Yeah, I should play the song "Closing Time," and we could cheers each other with our drink.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you again for coming on. I apologize for the Wi-Fi, the delay, whatever might be happening. I know on my end of things, there's times where I think Joe's just a mannequin smiling at me, and then all of a sudden I hear his voice come across like the sound of God speaking to me. But anything else you want to leave before we close out, Joe?
No. Just again, congratulations for taking the step into podcasting, and I applaud you for getting uncomfortable and getting, you'll become vulnerable, kind of just putting yourself and putting, your business out there, and I applaud it, and I again, congratulations to you.
Well, again, I appreciate for you coming on. The delay I was receiving, I'm really practicing patience right now. My yoga is like in the back of my mind saying, it's going to be okay. Don't break this poor little computer. It'll be okay. It
doesn't deserve it.
It costs more to replace than it does to be patient. Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your insights, your thoughts. It's always rewarding, at least for me, for everything that I get from the knowledge that you share. If you want to reach out to Joe, please reach out to him. He's a super wonderful guy, and I personally want to say thank you for helping the state of Nebraska, the state of Iowa. We had state of South Dakota. And we even had a couple of people from Thanksgiving and Christmas. Your support has always been very generous, and we really do appreciate you helping Turkeys for Soldiers. Usually for Stain and Seal, I'll bring a certificate of appreciation, and when we didn't have one, I was like, well, crap. Now what am I going to do? Like, and so as I was looking, I was like, oh, I better at least thank him here and acknowledge his generosity and his support. It's always welcomed, and we really, really do appreciate your generosity.
No, it goes along with everything else. Where myself and our team, we're always happy to help however we can, and that makes a lot of sense. The getting meals to soldiers, and it made sense with what our goal here is to make our community better. And I think sometimes community can mean your local market, and sometimes community can be your region, or can be it can really be however you define it. So it made sense to us to get involved with, and I appreciate the opportunity to get involved.
Well, we truly appreciate it. And so as we close out, we just wanted to say once again, thank you, Joe, for coming on and being part of this episode. And folks, until next time, I hope things get a little better. I'll do my best to be more technology savvy. And until then, Rob, what am I going to do? You could just send me another nasty meme saying like how incompetent I am. I have thick skin. It's okay. It bounces off. Hopefully it doesn't hit you when it bounces off, but we'll go from there. Folks, thank you for listening. Thank you for your patience. And until next time, have a wonderful night. All right. I think that's okay, come on. There we go. I think it's done. Well, Joe, thank you so much. I apologize for all the I don't know what the heck is going on. It says that it's still playing.